Good evening. I'm the Texas Deaconess. I'm glad you could join me for this session of Women of the Bible. When the deacon and I were discussing who is the next woman that we would like to study in depth, he suggested Anna. And I said, oh, isn't that the lady who cleaned the temple? That was the only recollection I had of Anna. And as we study together a little further into her life, we'll find out some other things about her. She was the first to acclaim the Christ. Humble, staid, serious, unearthly in spirit, a woman of expectant faith. That was Anna, the prophetess, the first woman to proclaim Jesus as the Christ. In the little band of men and women who looked for the Redeemer, she was one figure that stood out. This was a period when Rome dominated the entire Mediterranean world, ruling an empire larger than the Greeks, the Persians, or the Egyptians had even known. The empire was strong and powerful. Its science, philosophy, theology, and wealth, social power reigned supreme and were in opposition to any such idea as the coming of a Messiah. But there were a few, like Anna, who knew that the prophecies long foretold would be fulfilled. Why was the first woman in Judea to proclaim the Christ this gentle, elderly woman? Luke describes Anna as dwelling in an ivory tower of the spirit, aloof from worldly preoccupations. She lived apart from material things and served God with fasting and prayers day and night. He called her a prophetess. She stands foremost among the prophetesses listed in the New Testament. In Luke's brief description of Anna, we learn that she was a woman of great age and had lived with a husband 7 years from her virginity. And she was a widow of about 84 years. That's 84 years. From that passage, commentators determine her age differently. Some say that she was 84 years old. Others interpret the text to mean that she had been a widow for 84 years. If she had been married 7 years, she was probably over 100 years old. But her exact age is really of no consequence to the story. Most important is her spirituality. The mention of her is so brief that little of her character can be given. But there is enough to liken her to a bright star that sweeps above the horizon. She scarcely left the temple since early widowhood. Probably she held the place in the temple of deaconess or sister of charity. Now, it doesn't say that in the Bible. You have to go to extra biblical writings or commentaries to even find out that information. Anna belonged to a godly remnant. She was one of those who took time to enjoy all of God's beauties. Though an old woman of the ancient tribe of Asher, a daughter of Phanuel, Anna was young in hope. She not only confessed the Christ, but spoke of him to all who were looking for the redemption of Israel. Is this not a real clue to Anna's active, significant self? Among the others looking for redemption and the coming of the Messianic age were people of a simple faith, people who, like Anna, were more engrossed in spiritual things around the temple than in material things, people who read the scrolls of the law and the prophets daily and believed fully what Isaiah had spoken when he said, "Behold, a king shall reign in righteousness." And you can find that in Isaiah 32:1. We know that Anna was a woman who listened to the reading of the scrolls of the sacred scriptures. Those were the Bible of her time. and believed fully in the prophecies they contained. Not only did she believe, but she watched unceasingly for the coming of the Messiah. The time for her to see him with her own eyes finally came. It was at his presentation in the temple as an infant, according to the customs of the Jewish people, and at the ceremonial service of his mother's purification. That was 40 days after his birth. His mother Mary, with Joseph, had now come up to the holy city on Mount Zion from Bethlehem to present the most precious offering that have ever been laid on the altar. Just as Simeon uttered his famous saying, "Lord, now lettest thy servant depart in peace according to thy word, for my eyes have seen thy salvation." And you can find that famous statement in Luke 2:29-30. Anna stood watching. No sooner had she seen Simeon lift the child Jesus in her arms than she understood this heavenly inspiration. Turning to the bystanders who had waited so long for the redemption of the Lord, Anna declared that this was the promised Messiah, the hope of Israel, the Redeemer of the world. What greater prophecy could there be than this one? The aged woman had seen God more than events, and God in events. She had seen it because she was intimate with grace, providence, and redemption. As Joseph and Mary quietly left the temple with the child Jesus, Anna returned to the temple with thanksgiving and prayer. She had been there to behold him and to thank God for him, and to speak of him to all those men and women of prayer and devotion who had looked for the redemption for so long, the redemption that he was to bring as our Messiah and our Savior. Let's review a little bit about what we've learned about Anna. We know she was a widow of great age, a devout worshiper, a prophetess, and she proclaimed the coming Lord and Savior. She was faithful and waited for him. So remember what Hebrews tells us. Hebrews 9:28 says, "Blessed are they who prayerfully await Christ's second coming." That's us. That's you and me. We're the ones waiting for the second coming of Christ. I want to thank you for joining me for this lesson. And I'm looking forward to the next lesson that we can learn about women of the Bible together. May God continue to bless the United States of America and forgive their ill deeds. May God continue to bless the Republic of Texas, and may God continue to bless you and yours as we wait for the second coming of the Lord.